Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good day, welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page, that's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can also hear us live on audio streaming at Evox PBS Receiver app. Join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yesterday, the Armed Forces of the Philippines conducted its mid-year command conference with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in attendance. The said conference was presided by no less than AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Bronner Jr. among other key security officials. And a lot of matters were presented in that mid-year meeting. And that is what we will ask with our guest for today, the spokesperson of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla. Good morning, Colonel Padilla. Jerome Toledo here on Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good morning, Jerome, and good morning to all of your viewers and listeners.
Okay, so yesterday, the Armed Forces of the Philippines conducted its mid-year command conference. So that's our first installment of the command conference for this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. So who were the attendees of the conference, Colonel Padilla?
Well, Jerome, let's just say that the nation's top defense minds were all in the room. So this year's mid-year command conference was led by of course, our Commander-in-Chief, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., and in attendance also were key officials. There was the Department of National Defense, led by our Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr., and of course, the leadership of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, headed by our Chief of Staff, General Romeo Bronner Jr., and also present were senior commanders from our unified commands, our major services, and general headquarters, and representatives, of course, from Office of the President, the National Security Council. We also have the Office of the Presidential Advisor for Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity, who representative was also there. We also had somebody from ably represented by their head, the National Task Force of LCAC, and other agencies were all in the room. So all of us were gathered to assess our performance and, of course, recalibrate our strategies moving forward.
Okay, so that's that's the agenda of the conference, to discuss the performance of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. So besides that, what are the other agendas discussed at the meeting? So was the West Philippine Sea issue discussed there?
Well, basically, Jerome, in a nutshell, the agenda of the conference was broad in scope. It focused on operational accomplishments of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, our status where we are in terms of our internal security operations, our modernization updates, and organizational transformation in general. The goal was actually to ensure that the Armed Forces of the Philippines remains agile and responsive to a dynamic security environment. Now we're facing at different threat actors, and this is what we've discussed. While we are staying also, of course, aligned with our national priorities. However, the West Philippine Sea remains a strategic priority, and discussions involving our territorial defense posture are naturally embedded in our regular assessments.
I see. So talking about the modernization program, so I would like to get an update of the ships that we are potentially buying. If please correct me if I'm wrong on the information that I got here. So what's the update on that, or what's the status on this?
Well, we're well underway with our modernization projects, Jerome. All of our assets that we intend to procure are well within the scope of our Re-Horizon 3. So it's called Re-Horizon 3 because we looked at our transition from internal security operations to territorial defense, and therefore we will be leaning heavily more on maritime assets, procurement of maritime assets, aerial assets, and of course, cybersecurity. But as soon as the assets are turned over formally to the Armed Forces of the Philippines, this specifics in terms of particular assets will be very much discussed by our Department of National Defense as of this point, Jerome.
Okay, so meaning to say, so AFP prioritizes the maritime security, meaning the external aspect of our security.
Yes, Jerome, as we gradually shift to territorial defense, no, this is going to be our focus moving forward.
Okay, got it. Okay, so with that, so what were the marching orders of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to the armed forces?
Well, basically, as that was the agenda, no, President Marcos actually reaffirmed his trust and confidence in the armed forces of the Philippines, and he emphasized the importance of our readiness, unity, and professionalism. In fact, what is the highlight of the conference, Jerome?
Yeah.
As he sends his congratulatory message saying that he gives his congratulations for a job well done by every officer, sailor, marine, soldier, and airman, as the participation, no, in the different exercises that we have been conducting with like-minded nations and well-meaning nations. They all gave the complimentary compliments, no, in terms of professionalism to our officers and troops. So our president has said that each officer and soldier has been living up to the oath of protecting the country in a professional manner.
Okay, so our president praises our military personnel because of a job well done, as I say, job well done in fulfilling their duty as a soldier.
Yes, Jerome, no, over and above that, he also called on us to remain ever ready, united, and professional. So his directive was really clear, no, to continue to enhance our operational capabilities, support our transformation roadmap, and maintain a strong rules-based approach in terms of defending our sovereignty and protecting the welfare of our people.
Okay, so for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, so how often command conferences conduct?
Most often than not, Jerome, this is conducted twice a year. So this is midterm. Usually we have either at the start of the year or at the end of the year. So we start in January. Last year we had a January command conference. No, with that we are given marching orders for how we would be going about the rest of our year. So last year we were given a target to completely eliminate the internal security operations that we are conducting, and we were well within targets. As last December, we have already declared the weekend guerrilla fronts from 7 to 1, and now down to 0. No, we're just awaiting the official release of the weekend guerrilla front to be already no longer part of the fronts that we are facing. So with this, we are gradually transitioning now to territorial defense.
Okay, that's very good news. So, meaning to say the resources of the armed forces is gradually shifting to external threats instead of internal threats that we are facing for the past few decades.
Yes, Jerome, but we maintain to work with our law enforcement agencies to maintain peace and order as well.
Okay, so what does this command conference signify, Colonel Padilla?
Well, Jerome, this command conference actually reflects the Armed Forces of the Philippines' commitment to transparency, accountability, and of course, a strategic alignment with our national leadership. So, ang command conference demonstrates how the Armed Forces continuously evaluate our performance, how we adapt to emerging threats, and sharpen our collective focus as well. So it is also a strong message, no, of solidarity and foresight. This command conference is actually the proof that the armed forces of the Philippines isn't just watching over the horizon. No, we're trying to shape it, and we plan not just to be able to react, but to lead in securing peace and sovereignty and stability.
Okay, so with that, so how can the armed forces of the Philippines assure its loyalty to the Filipino people and also to the presidency amidst political noise, destabilization plots, and other disruptions that impacts the stability of our country?
Well, Jerome, we ensure that we remain on course in fulfilling our constitutional mandate to protect the people and secure the state. No, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, we remain solidly professional. We are non-partisan, as evidenced by the last elections that we have conducted. And of course, we continue to remain loyal to the Constitution. So our allegiance is to the flag. We keep repeating this, Jerome, no? And our duly constituted authorities. And most importantly, ang loyalties po natin is to the Filipino people. So we are guided by our oath of service, as also highlighted by the President in the command conference, and we uphold this role as a stabilizing force in the society. So that our battle cry here is, if we have one AFP, we have one Philippines, and if we have a strong AFP, we have a strong Philippines.
And I would like to support that the AFP remains apolitical and neutral.
Yes, Jerome, no? The Armed Forces of the Philippines actually stands to preserve this democratic space, no? To defend our institutions. So we draw this from the strength and unity anchored in the belief that a strong republic is built on trust, law, and the collective resolve of its defenders. What fuels us actually, Jerome, is the trust of the Filipino people.
All right, that's right. The trust of Filipino people to the armed forces of the Philippines. Okay, so let's have a segue here. So for a more pressing issue, particularly this experiencing right now the tropical storm Christine. So how the armed forces of the Philippines are responding to the effects of the tropical storm Christine. So has AFP coordinated already with our disaster officials and agencies?
Yes, Jerome, for all of these calamities that we are facing, we are closely working with the different government agencies on this. No? So we're looking at the National Disaster and Risk Management Council giving us marching orders on how we would also be deploying. All of our troops are ready. We have pre-positioned troops on the ground and equipment on the ground as well. We also have specialized units that are also ready to deploy at any one time. So all of this is in tandem with other agencies of the government for disaster response. Jerome.
All right. So Philippine Army, as well as our Air Force and our Navy are prepared for this tropical storm Christine that will impact, I think, the northern portion of the country.
Yes, Jerome, we are fully prepared. We are ready to work with the different agencies on this. In fact, under OCD, we are given orders to mobilize, and we use all the available assets that we have for disaster response. We also use it to mitigate these responses, and also with the SWD, we also work with them in terms of distribution of relief goods, if ever.
Oh, okay, got it. So AFP will be involved in not just in disaster response, but also in relief operations. Okay, so with that, thank you so much, Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, the spokesperson of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, for joining us in the program, and thank you for accepting our invitation for this interview. Thank you, Colonel, and have a good day.
Thank you, Jerome.
Okay, so you just heard and watched the interview of the program with the Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, the spokesperson of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And Front and Center will be right back after these short messages.
This is a public service announcement.
WOG,
Ito ay isang uri ng air pollution na galing sa pulkan. Ito ay nagtataglay ng sulfur dioxide na kapag nalanghap ay maaaring magdulot ng pag-ubo, hirap sa paghinga, pangangati ng lalamunan, paninikip ng dibdib at iritasyon sa mata. Mapanganib ito para sa mga taong may hika, sakit sa baga, sakit sa puso, matatanda, buntis at mga bata. Anong mga dapat gawin kapag may fog? Iwasan ang outdoor activities. Kung kinakailangan lumabas ng bahay, magsuot ng N95 face mask. Kung may iritasyon sa mata, dahan-dahang banlawan ang mata gamit ang malinis na tubig. Dalasan ang pag-inom ng tubig kung sakaling makaranas ng paninikip ng dibdib o hirap sa paghinga. At kung patuloy na mahirapan sa paghinga, dalhin ang pasyente sa pagamutan. Maging alerto at ingatan ang sarili mula sa panganib na hatid ng fog.
This is a public service announcement. From PBS, Presidential Broadcast Service and Radyo Pilipinas.
Calling all runners out there. Ipakita ang pagmamahal sa inang bayan at soberanya. Halina't makilahok sa takbo para sa West Philippine Sea 2025 sa Quirino Grandstand, Manila sa darating na July 27, 2025. Mayroon itong tatlong kategorya, 3K, 5K at 10K. Race shirts are provided to all registered participants. Hayaan ang mga yabag ng ating mga paa ang maging simbolo ng nag-aalab na pagmamahal at pakikibaka para sa West Philippine Sea. Para sa registration at karagdagang detalye, bisitahin ang official Facebook page ng Philippine Information Agency. Isang mensahe mula sa PIA at ng himpilang ito.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service with me, Jerome Toledo. And before we end, I would like to discuss about these developments in the country, particularly the approval of the operations and maintenance project of the railway from Clark in Pampanga to Calamba in Laguna. Because in the second meeting of the Economic Development Council, which the President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. chairs, the Operations and Maintenance or O&M project for the North-South Commuter Railway or NSCR will be implemented through a public-private partnership arrangement or PPP. The NSCR is a 147.26 kilometer elevated railway line that will link the province of Pampanga to Laguna, easing mobility access across Central Luzon, in Metro Manila, and in Calabarzon regions. And it will feature 31 elevated stations, 3 at grade and 1 underground stations with depots located in Clark, Valenzuela, and Calamba. And that railway is expected to serve up to 800,000 passengers daily in its opening year, gradually increasing to 1 million passengers daily. And 2 types of services will operate on that line. The commuter service will deploy 51 train sets, each accommodating up to more than 2,000 passengers. Meanwhile, the limited express service will operate with 7 train sets, each with a capacity of 386 passengers. And trains will operate at speeds ranging from 120 to 130 kilometers per hour. That's a major upgrade from the current average or the predecessor of that railway, which peaks at 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. And the travel time from Clark to Calamba will be cut through around 3 hours, while the limited express will reduce Clark to Alabang trips to about 2 hours. The minimum train headway is estimated to be 3 minutes. The NSCR system will also integrate operations with the Metro Manila Subway Project or MMSP, and the pre-operations are scheduled to begin in March next year, with full operations targeted for January 2032, and the total project cost is estimated at about 229.32 billion pesos. And also In some other developments, the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAGCOR, and the Ad Standards Council has finally inked an agreement to regulate the gambling ads and pre-screen gambling-related advertisements across all media platforms after 9 months of consultations. The agreement adds gambling to ASC's list of must-screen categories, joining alcohol beverages, over-the-counter medicines, food supplements, airline transport services with promotional fares, and breast milk substitutes. PAGCOR Chairman Altenco said the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, was a product of careful planning and thorough consultations with the ASC as part of efforts to promote responsible advertising in the gaming industry. Tenco further said that they have begun talks on ads regulation for over a year. Under the agreement, all branded or corporate gambling ads, including television, radio, online, and outdoor advertising, must be reviewed and approved by ASC prior to public release to curb misleading content and protect vulnerable groups from potential harm. And for her part, ASC Chairperson Golda Roldan said the collaboration underscores ASC's commitment to protect consumers, particularly in industries that require heightened sensitivity in messaging. And earlier this month, PAGCOR issued a directive ordering the immediate removal of all gambling-related billboards and out-of-home or OOH advertisements, including from public transport systems like buses, jeepneys, taxis, and trains. And all PAGCOR licensees and stakeholders were given until August 15 to comply and remove all gambling-related outdoor ads. And with that, we now conclude this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our production team and technical personnel, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay, love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.